Om Namo Bhagavat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Chapter 14, text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Parambhuya Pravakshyami Gnanam Gnanam Uttamam Yajgnatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection."
Text 2. Idam Jnanam Upasritya Mama Sadharmyam Agitaha Sargepi Nopajayante Pralayena Vyatanti cha.
By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus, established one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution.
Text 14.3. Mamayo nirmahat brahma tasmin garbham dadami aham sambhava sarva bhutanama tato bhavati bharata.
The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata.
Text 14.4. Sarvayonishu konteya murtayaha sambhavanti yaha Tasham Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradapita.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed giving father.
14.5. Sattvam Rajastama Iti Guna Prakriti Sambhavaha Nibadnanti Mahabaho Dehe Dehinam Avyayam.
Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes into contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes.
14.6. Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakasakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Badnati Jnanam Sangena Chanaga.
O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by the sense of happiness and knowledge.
14.7. Rajoragatmakam Vitti Krishna Sangha Samudbhavam Tannibadnati Konteya Karma Sangena Dehinam.
The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions.
14.8. Tamastavakyānam jam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabris tannibadnati bharata.
O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness born of ignorance is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul.
14.9. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata jnanam avrityatu tamaha pramade sanjayati uta.
O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to furtive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness.
14.10 Rajastamasjabhibhuya Satvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Satvam Tamaschaiva Tamaha Satvam Rajastatha.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes the mode of passion defeat goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
14.11 Sarvadvaresu tehasmin prakasa upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat virvidam sattvam iti uta.
The manifestations of mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
14.12 Lobha pravritirarambha karmanam asamah rajasi etani jayante vivirte bharatarsabha.
O chief of Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fugitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
14.13 Aprakaso pravritischa pramado moha evacha tamasya etani jayante vivirte kuru nandana.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested.
14.14 Yada sattve pravartetu pralayam yati dehabrat tadotama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate.
When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages.
14.15 Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangeshu jayante tatha pralinastamasi muddha yonishu jayate.
When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth from those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom.
14.16 Karmana Sukryasyahu Satvikam Nirmalam Phalam Rajasastu Phalam Dukam Ajnanam Tamasa Phalam.
The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness.
14.17 Satvat Sanjaya Te Gyanam Rajasolopa Evacha Pramada Moho Tamaso Bhavato Gnanam Evacha.
From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion.
14.18 Urdhavam Gachanti Satvasta Madhya Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaganya Guna Vitista Ado Gachanti Tamasaha.
Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets. And those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds.
14.19 Nanyam Gune Bhyam Kartaram Yada Drastanu Pasyati Gune Bhyascha Parambeti Madbhavan So Tigachati.
When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than, than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature.
14.20 Gunanitan atityatrain tehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukher vimuktamritam ashnute.
When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life.
14.21 Arjuna Uvacha Kailingastrin Gunanitan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kim Achara Katham Chaitams Tringuna Ativartate.
And Arjuna inquired, "Oh, my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?"
14.22 to 25 Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prakasam cha pravitram cha moham eva cha pandava nadvesti sampravat vartani na nirvatani kangsati udasina vadashino guneryo na vichalyate gunavartanta iti evam yovatistati nengate samad Dukha sukha svastaha samalotsama kanchanaha tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstuti manapa manayostulyas tulyo mitrari paksayo sarvaramba parityagi gunatitaha sa uchyate.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes of alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature.
14.26 Mamchayo Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Saguna Samatityaiten Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
14.27 Brahmano Hi Pratistaham Amritsya Vyasyascha Sasvatasya Dharmasya Sukhasya Ikantikasya cha.
Hare Krishna.
Oh.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Hare Krishna.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Gunatrey Vibhaga Yoga Nama Chaturdasho Adhyayaha. Hare Krishna. I
Hare
am really
Krishna.
sorry for my pronunciations.
No, thank you. Actually,
No, you were marvelous.
First time in my life I've tried Sanskrit.
so for the first attempt, Jyoti Mataji, that was amazing. That was very
Yeah,
good.
Really?
totally amazing. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. And Jyoti Mataji, your English was very nice and dramatic. You got us all to hooked on it. We just basically. So very nice. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Let me just bring up the verse for today. Okay, so we've got 1427. This is the last verse of this chapter. It's been very, very interesting going through this chapter. So we'll just go through the verse again. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14. We are on text 40 to 27 now. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amrutasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. Translation, Prabhupada Ki Jai. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. The purport, it's quite a long purport. We got one big paragraph and another one by two fairly biggish paragraphs. So let's see who's, I can see here on my, somebody we haven't heard from too often. So let's see. Okay. It's okay. There's a name, Kavita Patel. Are you able to unmute yourself, Kavita Mataji, and read the first paragraph for us? Okay, maybe not. So, okay, Labanga Mataji. But Labanga Mataji, we haven't heard from you for a long time. Are you able to read the first paragraph for us, Labanga Mataji? Okay, maybe third time lucky. Haribol. Okay, who's that? Who's that? Yes, Labanga. Thanks so much, Labanga Mataji.
Sorry, I'm first time going to read.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, is it a purport, yeah?
Purport, please, yeah.
Tell me when to stop.
Yeah, we'll stop at the end of that paragraph. There's a big paragraph. We can stop at the end of that.
Okay. The constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the super soul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization, and the supreme personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the supreme person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When a living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to Paramatma realization and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The four Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that although a person may risk to the stage of impersonal Brahman without going further with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Vedic language, it is also said, Raso Vaisaha Rasam Hi Evayam Labhyavanandi Bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendental blissful. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7.1, the Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences. And when a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king. And so eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, and eternal life accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman or eternity or imperishability is included in devotional service. This is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service.
Thank you so much, Lamgama. That was very nice, very fluent.
It's okay. I tried.
That's great. The next paragraph, let's see. We got Anna. Anna, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I am.
Oh, please, if you can read the second paragraph for us, please.
The living entity, although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material world, and due to this, he falls down. In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the 3 modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in the different modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these 3 modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in the transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Therefore, the process of devotional service, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, the prescribed 9 methods for realizing devotional service, should be practiced in the association of devotees. Gradually, by such association, by the influence of the spiritual master, one's material desire to dominate is removed, and one becomes firmly situated in the Lord's transcendental loving service. This method is prescribed from the 22nd to the last verse of this chapter. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, should eat the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastimes, read of the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, chant always the transcendental vibration Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and observe the fasting days commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord and his devotees. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyotir, or the different varieties of the Brahman conception is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Anna Mataji. So that's in the purports of the 14th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of the three modes of material nature. We come to the end. That's really, really amazing, this chapter. So let me just stop sharing this and go to my PowerPoint. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Parshaka Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So 14th chapter. For the last time, we'll do the summary. 14:1 to 4 spoke about the liberation and how the soul is, how we are all liberated, and how we come to become, how we come to being conditioned. 5 to 9 spoke about how the modes bind the pure soul. 10 to 13 spoke about recognizing the modes of supremacy. Then 14 to 18 spoke about acting and dying within the modes. And the last section was the most sweetest one, talking about how the situation is not hopeless. There are ways to transcend the modes and perfect our life. So we already recited the verse. We'll just remind ourselves of the English. Krishna says, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So, as usual, we just try and pick up some of the main points. It's quite a big purport, so there's we don't have time to go through it in very much detail, but I picked up what I felt were the main points that we need to take home from this purport. And at the end, time permitting, we'll also just do a quick summary of the whole chapter. So Prabhupada says the constitutional position of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. So this word Brahman is quite interesting. We will see it being used in many ways. So okay, can maybe somebody just unmute and tell us what is the meaning? What do you think is the meaning of Brahman?
Was it told?
Was somebody saying something I didn't hear?
Hariki, can I say?
Yes, Palika Mataji.
What I understand from Brahman is the realization of the impersonal aspect of Sri Krishna.
Okay, so yes, that's one of the meanings. But the generic meaning of the word Brahman actually literally means spirit.
Spirit. Yeah.
That is the meaning of the word Brahman. But you will see in many verses and many purports, this Brahman, the word, is quite versatile. So it can be used in different ways, and it is used in different ways. So depending on the context of the text or what Prabhupada is speaking about in the purport, that it can refer to God. So the Lord Himself is referred to as Brahman. Then the effulgence, like the Brahma Jyoti that Palika Mataji spoke about, the Brahma Jyoti is also called Brahman. And the individual soul is also called Brahman.
Brahman, yeah.
So this is the three ways that Brahman can be understood. So when we are reading the verses, we need to be aware of the context to see what actually is what Brahman means in this particular case. So this is one thing. And but whenever it is referred to, whenever the word is used in context of the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, the three aspects of the supreme truth, in that case, it always refers to the Brahma Jyoti. Because we have that famous verse in the first canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam
Brahmeti Paramatmiti Bhagavan.
Sabdya. Thank you, Bharaka Mataji. So that verse talks about Brahman here. They so talks about Brahmeti. That's Brahma. Brahman there is, of course, the Brahma Jyoti. So whenever that's used in that context, it is there. So here you can see in this picture, you've got the personal form, the Paramatma form, the supreme personal form, and the Paramatma form, which is also a personal form, but this is localized and all pervasive. And then you've got the Brahma Jyoti, which is this effulgence which is coming out of the Lord's body. Prabhupada then says the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of ultimate truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. So in that verse where he says Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagwaniti Shabdate, so Brahman realization is also the spiritual realization. It is the absolute truth, but it's only one side of it. It's partial understanding. Paramatma also is a partial understanding. It's a bit more than Brahman realization, but it is still partial. And Bhagwan is the complete realization. And once you have the Bhagwan realization, then those two are automatically included. Then Prabhupada says it is explained in the 7th chapter rather, that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. So there's two verses actually, 7.4 and 7.5. 7.4 talks about the elements themselves. Bhumi rapo nano vayur kam mano buddhi evacha ahankara iti yamne
Prakriti Astada.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna Mataji. So it talks about earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 represent my separated material energy. But then in 7.5, does anybody know this verse? Krishna Mataji, 7.5. The next verse. Palika Mataji, anybody else? So here's what this particular purport that Prabhupada says is nature is manifested, is inferior, is in this verse. Apareyamitastvanyam prakritam vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides these meaning those 8 elements we spoke about, O mighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So we are a superior energy compared to the matter. Matter is dull, and then the jivas, we are called the tatastha shakti. Tatastha shakti meaning we have the option to go to become spiritual or remain tied to matter. So that's our option. So this is what he means in that purport. Then when a living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. So here, Prabhupada in this purport is already talking about how the conditioned living being can start to make his way back by cultivation of spiritual knowledge. So with spiritual knowledge, we're going to make progress, of course, but here, in one sense, Prabhupada is talking about knowledge only, not devotion. So spiritual knowledge minus devotion or minus devotional service is Brahman realization, basically. This is what it comes. That's why the people who are not devotional, but they still are studying the Vedas and they do all so they do make progress. But their progress it takes them up to Brahman because they haven't got devotion yet. Right? So Prabhupada continues, if he wants, he can continue to stay in Brahman position and then gradually rise up to the Paramatma realization and then to the realization of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this path is available for him. But usually once somebody is in a Brahman realization, it is quite difficult to make that journey. It is said that they would normally, it will say later on in the purport, that they actually sometimes tend to fall back to the material nature. And then Prabhupada speaks in the purport about examples of personalities who were in the Brahman realization and they came to the personal supreme realization. And the example he talks about is the four Kumaras. And that pastime comes in the third canto of Bhagavatam, 15th chapter. And this particular verse talks about the moment where they actually change. So in the case, here actually Prabhupada says it says gradually. So yes, generally speaking, the process is gradual. But in the case of the Kumaras, as we read in the Bhagavatam, it was quite instant. So this beautiful verse happens to be one of our memory verses in our course. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda kinjal kamishra tulasi makaranda vayu antargata swa vivarena chakara tesham Sanshobham Akshara Jusham Apichitta Tanvo. Very nice verse. And here you can see in the picture, you can see the four Kumaras having an argument with Jaya and Vijay because they didn't want to let them in. It says, when the breeze, see the Lord, Vishnu hasn't even come out. He, as you know, in the past time, Vishnu, when he hears the commotion outside, he then comes out actually. But before even he came out, this is what happened. When the breeze carrying the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead entered into the nostrils of the sages, they experienced a change both in body and mind. And even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So just by that, just by, not even seeing the Lord yet, just by the aroma of the tulsi leaves, they change from Brahman to realization to the personal realization. This is a very, very nice example. Very nice pastime as well, but today we don't have time to go too much detail into that. Prabhupada continues, one who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. So this is what I was talking about. If we are stuck in Brahman realization, see, the spirit soul by nature is active. We need to be active. The whole society is set that is. We need to associate with people. This is why generally there's gatherings, social gatherings. We are animals where we need to interact with other animals. So this way, by being in the Brahman realization, where if you end up in Brahma Jyoti, there is no activity. You merge into the Brahma Jyoti, and that's it. There is some kind of bliss there because there is no troubles like there are in the material world. But that bliss is not enough to sustain you because then there is you are on your own completely. There's nothing there. So how much can you remain in peace? Sometimes when you have a hard day, we can say, okay, I'm going to just lock myself in a room and just lie down for a little while. But you can do that for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Then you want to then start interacting with your family members again. So similarly, these people will fall down again, unfortunately. And this verse in the 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, 32, Prabhupada quotes this quite often, especially the last couple of lines. He quotes very, very often. Yene Ravindra Aksha Vimukta Maninas Vayasta Bhavad Avishuddha Buddhaya Aruhya Krichena Parampadam Tata Patantyado Nadrita Yushmad Angraya. So Aruhya Krichena Param, Prabhupada gets excited when he speaks like this. So he says, this translation goes, someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, there are those who are not devotees, but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma, this actually is prayers by Lord Brahma to the Supreme Lord. Lord Brahma and other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from a position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So you see, unless we have developed love for Krishna, there is always chance of fallback. So even people after severe austerities and penances make their way to the Brahmajyoti, they will still feel something is missing. So this is why what we have been given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and by Srila Prabhupada, that is the perfect, because if we can perfect our love for Krishna and our personal relationship with him, then there is no way back from there. That is the perfect situation for us. In that purport of that verse in the 10th canto, Prabhupada clarifies that aside from devotees, there are many others, non-devotees, known as karmis, jnanis, or yogis, philanthropists, altruists, politicians, impersonalists, and voidists. There are many varieties of non-devotees who have their respective ways of liberation, but simply because they do not have the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, although they are falsely thinking they have been liberated and elevated to the highest position, they fall down. As clearly stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.3, Ashraddhadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravatmani. Those who are not faithful to the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes, but return to birth and death in this material world. It doesn't matter whether one is a karmi, jnani, yogi, philanthropist, politician, or whatever. If one has no love for the lotus feet of the Lord, one falls down. That is the verdict given by Lord Brahma in this verse. Prabhupada continues in the purport, the Supreme Lord is full of six opulences, and when a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these six opulences. The servant of a king enjoys on an almost equal level of the king. So six opulences we of course know. Anybody can speak them out, the six opulences?
Wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation.
Perfect. And one missing. Wealth,
strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation.
Sorry, you got them all. Yes, I didn't hear one. So that's fine. You got them all. So when we associate with the Lord, when we get our relationship with him, then we actually share these qualities. We already have some of these qualities in a very, very minute quantity. But when we associate, when we become a pure devotee and approach the Lord, then Prabhupada here says we actually exchange these opulences with the Lord. So we get a lot more of the opulences with him. And Prabhupada says, therefore, realization of the Brahman or eternity or imperishability is included in the devotional service. That is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service. So we're getting a lot more, much, much more. Prabhupada says, like as the servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king, meaning that the servant of the king, because the king lives very lavishly, right? He's got this wonderful palace and all the wonderful luxuries in this. So the king lives in there, of course, but the servant also lives there. He's also enjoying all these luxuries. So this reminds me of my partner, my business partner. He's got a beautiful house in Delhi. He lives in Hong Kong, but he's got a house in Delhi. So he goes there every few months with his family. But most of the time he spends in Hong Kong. But that house is running, and there's like 4 or 5 servants who live there and look after the house. So imagine these servants for most of the year, they are on their own in the house. They're actually utilizing this house just like their own. They're enjoying all the facilities in the house. They watch the TV, they use the air conditioning, everything. And my partner only uses it occasionally. So the servants are having an equal level of enjoyment as he is, as the owner is. So this is what happens. When we are at the level of Krishna, we enjoy these opulences that Krishna is enjoying. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. This is very nice, actually. Here, Prabhupada is saying, It's very simple. What do you need to do? And he listed out the items. One should always engage in the service of the Lord. One should eat remnants of the foodstuffs offered to the deity. One should offer flowers to the lotus feet of the Lord. See the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastimes. Read the different activities for the Lord and his reciprocation of love with his devotees. Chant always a transcendental vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is very simple. Prabhupada always used to say that devotion life is simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. Observing fasting days and commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord's and his devotees. So this is simple, very, very simple. This is what we need to do all the time to keep moving upwards in our spirituality. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyoti or the different varieties of the Brahman conceptions is equal to the Supreme Lord of Godhead in quality, not in quantity, but in quality. So the 9 processes of devotional service, we all know them. Does anybody know the verse in the 7th canto, talking about the 9 processes? Starts with
Kirtanam Shravanam Vishnu
Nandam Pada Sevanam.
Okay, very nice. Somebody's singing so nicely. So it says, Shripaladhuvacha, it goes, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Achanam Vandam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. So, Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting or giving lectures. Vishnu, that's about Vishnu. Smaranam, thinking about Pada Sevanam, worshiping the lotus feet. Archanam, doing the Archana Puja. Vandanam, offering prayers to him. Dasyam, being his servant. Sakyam, being his friend. Atma Nivedanam, offering our whole complete self to him. So these are the 9 processes. So how the living, then Prabhupada talks about how the living entity becomes entangled. First of all, so this is now the summary, by the way, of the 14th chapter. We go, because it's the last verse, we can just completely summarize the chapter. So in the beginning, Krishna tells us about how the living entity becomes entangled. So living entity, although Brahman in nature, as I was saying before, living entity is also called Brahman. We are spiritual in nature, we are a spirit soul, but because of the desire to lord it over material nature and enjoy separately from Krishna, we are sent down here. There is a desire to enjoy makes him fall down. Association with the modes makes him desire to dominate the material world in different bodies. Then how we get out of this is to develop this. How devotional service helps us. Krishna consciousness immediately puts us in the transcendental position. His unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Practicing 9 processes of devotional service in the association of devotees and the influence of the spiritual master removes one's material desire to dominate. And this way one becomes firmly fixed in devotional service, and thus situated in Brahman conception becomes equal in quantity with the Supreme Personality Godhead. So this is basically the summary of this chapter. I was just thinking about how, when we spoke about earlier, how you engage everything in the service of the Lord, how we're supposed to utilize everything we have in the service of the Lord, our faculties as well as our possessions. So what came to mind was this beautiful verse and purport. Verse is quite long. We just wanted the purport of this is Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj was such a pure, such a perfect devotee, and we can look at this as an example. So Ambarish Maharaj always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna, He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desire in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambrish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires. It's beautiful, isn't it? Such a nice way to be if we can become like Ambrish Maharaj. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor. So devotees, I will stop here and I'll take any comments, any questions about this whole chapter or this particular verse, any realizations.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hema Mataji.
Prabhuji, thank you for a wonderful summary. That was so useful. I was listening to Bhishma Stuti today, and Bhishma Deva being so exalted, he is obviously Mahajan, totally surrendered to the Lord. And even he, at the end of his life, is saying to Krishna, can I marry my intelligence to you, my mati, so that I can disentangle myself from the modes? And I'm thinking, is that just a pastime, or was he really being humble and saying that to Krishna? Because he must be beyond the modes, isn't it?
So yes, thank you, Hema Mataji, for raising that. Bhishma Pitama, of course, he came part of the entourage of the Lord. So he is a Nitya Siddha. All the associates of the Lord who take part in his pastimes are Nitya Siddha. So they are not really covered. But for the sake of the Lord's pastime, they enact this pastime. So he is, although he is actually not covered, but he is acting like he is covered. Right. You see, okay, to set an example to show us all, he is acting a perfect role. So although yes, as a soul himself, he was a Nitya Siddha, but because of his pastime, because of how he had to act, how he had to support Duryodhan and all that, he is saying, now I need, you to bless me so I can get rid of all those attachments. So it is a pastime, but yes, but everything there is for lessons for us to learn.
For lessons, yes.
Thank you for raising them.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Mataji.
Prabhuji, in this last sloka, the very last sentence, one who can thus situated himself in the Brahma Jyoti or the different varieties of the Brahman conception is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality. I can't, I'm not understanding this properly.
Okay, so this is the Veda, Achintya Veda Tattva, right? So when we become, when we can get closer and closer, we get our devotional service, devotional life more and more perfect. We get to the stage where, in terms of quality, as it is already, we are spirit soul, aren't we? We are spirit soul. We are completely spiritual, actually. But because we are covered with the Maya, with the three modes, we are not able to realize that part of spirituality. We're not really realizing it. But when we get closer to Krishna, when our devotional service is getting more and more perfect, then we will be realizing our spiritual quality more and more. And then at the perfection stage, when you actually, whether it's Brahmajyoti stage or Paramatma stage or the Supreme Lord's Association stage, at that stage, we will feel that quality in fullness, right? So in quality, we will be one with the Lord, but in quantity still, we are Anu, he is Vibhu. Does that make sense, Krishnamani?
Because when Yeah, when it says Brahma Jyoti and Brahman, so that's why, I thought when you are in a Brahma Jyoti, then, like Brahma Jyoti is a little bit far. It's a first stage,
Yes,
then Paramatma, and then Bhagavan, right?
yes. Although
So,
it's the
but
first
here
stage,
it says
yeah,
Brahma Jyoti.
yes. Although
And
it's
then you,
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, although it is the first stage, Krishna
sorry,
Mataji, it is still a spiritual stage. It is a spiritual stage,
okay.
and you are already quite
Mm.
close to the Lord. So those are the different destinations, and people. Somebody who's actually all his life has been aspiring to merge into the Brahmajyoti, he will be quite happy there, at least for a while. And there he does enjoy the bliss of Krishna, and because of his quality, his spiritual quality is all completely revealed at that stage. At that stage, the difference is that he is not, because he hasn't got the personal conception of the Lord. So he is incomplete in that sense, and this is why there's a chance that he will fall down. But whilst he's
Mm.
there, he is completely in union with the Lord in that sense.
Okay, so when he is there, he's got.
He's quality
But
wise,
because there is,
yes, he's enjoying the
and then
same
that
bliss. Hmm.
fall it down,
Yeah.
yeah? Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Prabhu, in that context, when they are in Brahmajyoti, because it's part of Krishna's effulgence, comes from his body, do they do devotional service or are they sort of dormant?
Dormant, yeah, that's exactly. This is the point, Vishani Mataji. Exactly, there is no activity in the Brahma Jyoti.
Yes.
Zero activity.
Mm.
Because you are merging, literally, you're merging with the Brahma Jyoti. So in one, you're actually losing your identity while you are there.
But then you have to come back down anyway.
Yes. So, but not
Unless
everybody. Not everybody. Some may be just happy to remain there as they are, right? But people who have been very active and they want to interact, they will come down again. And Prabhupada says often that these people, generally speaking, when they come down, they do a lot of philanthropic work and altruistic work like this, right? But yes, but some actually will move forward, because from the Brahma Jyoti, if they have had some associations with devotees and everything, it is possible for them to move even from Brahma Jyoti to the super soul realization and to the personal realization. The Supreme Lord is also. So it's possible.
there Krishna helps them, or is there anybody higher
Yeah.
authority that helps them? How does it happen? Because
So
I
that's
mean,
why
as it
exactly.
says in the purport, that's what the question was.
Yeah. So no. Of course, over there, like I say, there is no association. There is nothing there. The jiva is there, and he's merged with the Brahma Jyoti. So he's enjoying all the bliss. Brahma Jyoti is bliss as well, right?
Yes.
There is a lot of peace there. There is no material problems there. So there is peace. So one can remain there for eternity if he wants to, right? But the point is that is still not complete.
Yes.
And for us to enjoy all the aspects of Satchit Ananda, we need to be with Krishna. Otherwise, we're just enjoying one part of it.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Mukunda, Hare Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Palika Mataji.
Yeah, you just, I also have the same question. You said that when you go there, you fall down, or how does that process takes place?
So somewhere I read, I'm just trying to sort of think, I'm not quite sure where the source was, whether it was in somebody's class or something I read. It was that when the souls who have actually merged with the Brahma Jyoti completely, they do not come back. But these souls who have almost reached the Brahma Jyoti, but not quite merged yet, those are the souls who fall down. Because they are still not completely pure. Prabhupada uses the word there because not completely pure.
So they come down to this material world?
Yeah, they come back and take birth in a nice family, and they will have access to Lakshmi to do philanthropic work and altruistic work.
But that is more impersonal, isn't it?
It is impersonal, but then when they are doing that, if they are fortunate enough to meet the devotee of the Lord, then they can make the path correct again.
That's
It all
what I've
depends.
heard as well.
Say again.
That's what I have heard as well. But
Yes.
still the question is, with the philanthropic work, there can be statistics, you know. So I mean, that's when it comes to me that it will take longer to go back.
Yes, yes, it will definitely take longer. It will take longer. But again, it all depends. If the soul is very fortunate, has the mercy of a devotee. You know, something Prabhupada used to say, when these, the early devotees, the hippies, in the early days when they were listening to Prabhupada, and at one point some question came up, and it said that you should, unless you have some sukriti from your past life,
yes,
or even from earlier this life, you will not be able to take the devotional service. You need some sukriti to at least be in the mode of goodness to think about devotional service, right? So
yes.
Prabhupada is making the point that unless you have some sukriti, you cannot come to Krishna consciousness. So this one devotee raises his hand and says, Prabhupada, in that case, all of us sitting here, we must have had some sukriti to be able to meet you.
Yes,
And you know what Prabhupada said? Does anybody know what the Prabhupada's answer was?
Srila Prabhupada said, I made that.
Yes, exactly. Prabhupada said, you had no sukriti, I made your sukriti. So similarly, these souls that Vishalini Mataji you're talking about, they may be doing altruistic work or philanthropic work in an atheistic manner. But a pure devotee, if he comes in contact and gives them the mercy, his sukriti can be created.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So true. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Puja Mataji.
any idea of how many of the hippies whom Srila Prabhupada met initially when he went to America, how many became his devotees?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So they were in the beginning, as we know, there were more than 5,000 devotees. Now, of course, they're not all hippies, but from different parts of America, Europe, and everything, right? In terms of, yes, I don't think there is any count there. What is interesting, I also often think about this, that we know of some who are already sort of sannyasis in our movement, right? So, but I'm sure that a lot also fell away, right? Because of, you see, it all depends on how much covering you've got, because they all were sort of in very bad habits and all that, and some of them may have fallen back because the pull to the material world was just too strong in the end, right? So especially after Prabhupada left, there was a lot of falling away.
Okay.
But the point is, there's still quite a few did stay, and we still have them around.
Yeah. And my other question is, Prabhuji, it means something for my own understanding, that Paramatma is within us, and it's very difficult to approach him, because he is, as you said, the 3 stages of Bhagwan realization. Paramatma realization is the 2nd stage. It must be harder to reach there than to reach the Brahma Jyoti. Even though he is right inside us.
Yes, he is right. But the yogis who are not interested in, see, you don't necessarily have to go step by step, right? Okay. The yogis, for example, they focus and they do all that meditation. They can see the Lord within themselves. Of course, after a lot of practice, a lot of austerity, a lot of meditation, right? But yes, yogis can see the Lord themselves. Yes, it is possible.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One question, Mukundari Prabhu. Now
Yes.
we finish chapter 14.
Yeah.
So we won't be doing 15 because we done it before in
Yes, 15 we did just recently. So from tomorrow is going to be Madhukumari Mataji taking us into the 16th chapter.
16th chapter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's
Hare
also
Krishna,
a nice
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Mamta
Prabhu.
Mataji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Lovely
Krishna,
chapter.
Prabhu.
Very lovely chapter. I was just saying, like, maybe are we the destitute souls because we're coming in association with all other Vaishnavas and devotees, and maybe by coming in association with a pure devotee, maybe we can still go back to our way, back and mix with the Paramatma. The other thing which I realize is the more we get into Krishna consciousness, the more our Atma that starts improving, and then we start the outer layer, which is at the moment materialistic layer, which is quite broad at the moment. We can see only the material layer. So the more we get into devotion, the Atma starts expanding, and then the material layer starts becoming thinner and thinner. Am I right in saying that?
That's true. Yes, exactly. The more we are in devotional service, the layers and layers of our dust start going away. Cheto Darpana Marjan. We see the first shloka of the Ashtastakam, right? Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. Here he talks about the mirror of our heart is covered with a thick layer of dust over many, many lifetimes. But chanting the names of the Lord, even just simply chanting the names of the Lord with attention, with focus, it removes this dust. Cheto means our heart. Darpana, of course, means mirror. Marjanam,
cleaning.
Yeah. So yes, all the devotional service, chanting, reading, hearing, attending classes, all that is doing that gradually.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to answer the other just make a comment on the first part, yes, we are all, Prabhupada used to say, we are all mercy cases. We are all mercy cases. We need mercy of devotees to move forward faster.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Was there anybody else saying something?
I have a question, Mukunda Prabhu.
Ajay Mukund Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Going back to the concept of merging, if the soul is eternally separate, part and parcel, in what way is the merging?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it because if it's separate, then itself cannot merge? It must be its qualities or something.
Yes, you're right. You're quite right. Clearly, the soul is eternally part and parcel of the Lord. But when the desire is to merge, because there's a large part of Hinduism where they believe in merging at the end, just merging, becoming one with the Lord, right? So the Lord doesn't disappoint them. So He will give them temporary merging. So they will go to the Brahmajyoti, they will become one with the Brahmajyoti. The identity, they lose their identity in the sense that because they're not doing anything themselves then, right? But their soul remains separate anyway, because when at the end of time, they will remain in Brahmajyoti, or they will move on, right? And some of them who are not quite made it there will come down, as we were saying. But yes, there is this merging is one of the, out of the muktis, 5 muktis, one is Sayuja Mukti. Sayuja Mukti is merging in the present in the merging with the Lord, which is merging not with the body of the Lord, but with the effulgence of the Lord. So it is one of the recognized ways of liberation.
It's still difficult to understand. If it eternally separate, how can we say it's merged?
Yeah, so
I still don't understand that bit.
No, I think you got a point there, Ajay Mukund Babu. You got a point. It is difficult. The concept is difficult to understand, because whilst we're saying you're merging with the effulgence, yet we are saying the soul is eternally separate from part and parcel. But yeah, you got to understand it. Perhaps also in the Achintya Bheda Ved Tattva, in one sense they are merged, in the other sense they are not, like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda Prabhu.
Mother's got the answer. She's got the
No,
answer.
I haven't got the answer. I'm just thinking a bit more into it. I just feel that the way they are merging, I think as a soul particle, they're in the effulgence of Krishna. That way, they're in the effulgence of Krishna, but their individual soul is still there, like water molecule. They're in the water, but still the molecule itself is separate from each other.
Right.
That's the way I understand.
Yeah. So, but that's right. So, like Ajay Mukund made the point that yes, eternally the soul has to be there, eternally. But then they say at the same time they say that the soul merges with the effulgence. So there's two things here, right? So it's also, to be very honest, it's also not very clear in my
Very
mind.
difficult concept. I find it's very difficult.
That's what I'm saying. The only way we can understand it is that perhaps in one sense, like we are saying, we are equal to Lord, and then at the same time we are not. Yes. The same way, they in one sense they are merged, but in another sense they are not, like that.
The way I was thinking, Prabhu, was similar to Mataji, Palika Mataji, that if you look at the leaf on a tree from afar, they're all the same, and yet they are not the same.
Yes, that's a good point. Very good point, Palika Mataji and Ajay Mukund Prabhu. Thank you for endorsing that as well, because you can also see if you see a ray of sunshine, right? To us, it looks like one homogeneous ray, right? No, we know that ray is made up of millions
So
of
many, yes, particles of light. I mean, yes,
like that.
Particles, yeah.
Exactly.
They're called photons.
Photons.
Yes,
Right?
photons.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for the scientific input. Yes, there you go. But thank you so much for such a healthy discussion. It's something that we can probably ask Karthik Chandra Babu once. He will explain to us in more detail.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mukunda Hari Prabhu. In continuation with that, I was just thinking that maybe the souls that emerge in the Brahman effulgence, they also come down. I don't know if it's by Krishna's will. They also come down to teach and preach. So many souls on earth. To the souls that get attracted to the Brahman effulgence, they also come down, because like Swami Vivekananda, and then there is a Chinmaya mission. So so many schools of thought in India, they are so much into Brahman. So it's like Brahman realization, and so they are attracting many kind of what do you call, devotees or souls. Again, they are taking those souls to Brahman effulgence. Even they come down and preach, and they take them as well to the Brahman effulgence. I was just thinking like that.
I think that's true as well. They will come down to maybe preach their philosophy more, or they'll come down and do some altruistic work, philosophic work. Yeah, you're right. Yes, so they do probably come down to teach as well. That's true.
So why do we call them as Mayavadi?
Yeah, Mukunda Hari Prabhu.
Yes. So I'll just say one thing, Palika Mataji. Mayavadi. So Mayavadi, there's two things: there's Brahmavadis and Mayavadis, right?
Yeah.
Souls who want to merge in the Brahma Jyoti are Brahmavadis, and they appreciate that there is something like the Lord, right?
Yeah, please.
Mayavadis, we call them Mayavadis because they say that Krishna actually comes from a Brahma Jyoti. This is what we call them. They say Krishna is covered by Maya. We call it Mayavadi.
Okay, so they think Krishna don't have a form, and Krishna takes the material nature to make as his form.
Yes, and Krishna comes from Brahma Jyoti, and he takes a form like us when he comes here. That's why they are Mayavadis. They say Krishna is also Maya. Krishna Mataji, you were saying something?
Prabhuji, I thought, like all these yogis and, the meditators, they reach up to the Brahma Jyoti. And like even Guru Maharaj said, the Sayujya Mukti, that is like a kind of a suicide, because they want to merge into the light. And whoever reaches to the Brahma Jyoti, they all fall down. Once they're, like when the pious people reach to the spiritual Swargaloka, and then when their punya finishes, they come down. Same with the Brahma Jyoti, when their time finishes, all fall down to the earthly planet. And I heard that when they fall, they become a stone, because they fall from such a height, so they just becomes like a stone.
I to be honest, I haven't heard that all come down. But again, this is something that's a gray area here. We need to just get some advice. I didn't know that they all come down, but we can double check that.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. I was just thinking, why did Krishna in the last verse and the second last verse, Krishna talked about Brahman instead of devotee reaching Krishna by servita? Because three modes of material nature, those who cross over three modes of material nature, why is Krishna saying only about the Brahman and not the devotees who reach Krishna Loka? Because when in Srimad Bhagavatam, I think 1.2.17 to 19, it talks about, low in bhakti also, the lower modes are still there unless you reach the bhava stage.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so why doesn't Krishna give one or two verses more about the devotee and not only finish on the Brahman realization?
No, so this particular chapter, Krishna is finishing because he's taking us to the Brahma stage, up to the giving us that. It's progression. So now the next chapter, as we read the 15th chapter, it was very much about devotional service, right? About
Yes.
the Krishna, the form himself. So this is, we are actually, if you look, we're not stopping here. We're going to continue. Well, as it is, we won't do 15 now. But if you go back to, if you just have a look at the 15 verses, they're all about personal. So it's like, it's not stopping, Krishna. This is not the end, right? It's just
Gradually, it's going gradually.
taking us across.
Yeah.
Devotees, I'm just saying, my battery on the laptop is running very low and my charger is downstairs.
Sorry.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Wonderful
Thank you.
class.
Hare
Thank you very much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Hare
very
Krishna.
much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare